us on this journey.
All right. So thank you, Monique. My name is Simone Geib. I lead the product management team for Anypoint Code Builder. You may have seen me before on meetups or webinars. And I am today going to show you the third in the ABCs of ACB. We had the A, we had the B. Today we're doing the C, which is connecting systems with ACB. If you missed the A and the B, I highly recommend you go and watch the recordings and see Dakota Garcia and Mofi Olubalana, our two other product managers on the team, doing their awesome sessions for A and B. So now, before I dig into the C and show you how you can connect systems with Anypoint Code Builder, I have to show you this. There will be roadmap. There will be things I talk about that are not available today. So please do not make any decisions based on things that are not already available. So most of you know what Anypoint Code Builder is, but there may be a few people here today who maybe tune in for the first time. So I'm going to do a quick introduction. So Anypoint Code Builder is the next generation IDE at MuleSoft to build your APIs and integrations. And I'm going to show like the three journeys in a little bit, but basically this is our new IDE. It will, and I know this question will come up, it will eventually replace Anypoint Studio and API Designer, but we will have them all in parallel. We will support them for several years, so don't worry about it. But this is the new IDE built on Visual Studio Code. So you will see when I do the demo what that looks like. We take advantage of a lot of the Visual Studio Code features. And the reason why we chose it is because this is the favorite IDE in the market out there right now. We talk to a lot of people, and most of the time when we get on a call with customers, at least one or two of them are already using VS Code and are super happy to see ACB on there. We also are, when we go GA, we are going to introduce Gen AI features in a closed pilot. If there is time in the end, I may do a little demo, but Mofi did a whole session about it, which has been recorded, which you can go and watch, and then you get all the details on that. So now I talked about the use cases, and we are basically supporting these three main use cases in Anypoint Code Builder or ACB. You design an API in either RAML or OAS3. You can then implement that API, and we also support implementing GraphQL APIs, or you can develop an integration. And the main difference between those is that developing an integration is not triggered by an API call, but the trigger is usually an application event or a timed event. And this third journey is what I'm going to focus on today, showing you how you can develop an integration that connects to a number of different systems. So you see this little GIF where in ACB, you define an integration, you build your flow in the canvas. Once you've done with it, you can deploy it to the local runtime that we bundle. You can debug it, you can test it, and then you can deploy it to Cloud Hub. And all of that I'm going to show you in the demo today. One other very important thing to note is that Anypoint Code Builder comes in two flavors. One is what we call ACB for desktop. So basically, you have your Visual Studio Code installed on your laptop, and then you go to the VS Code Marketplace and you install our extension pack. It's called the Anypoint Extension Pack. It's already out there in open beta right now, so you can install it today. And when you install it, you just right now select pre-release. When we go GA, we are going to refresh that, and then you can install the actual release. So that's one flavor. The second flavor, and I will show you that in the demo as well, is what we call the Cloud IDE. So the Cloud IDE, you can start directly from your Anypoint homepage, you can launch it from there, and then you can work directly in your browser. The Cloud IDE is also available in open beta right now. When we go GA next week, we will initially GA the desktop version, and the Cloud IDE will stay in open beta for another around 6 months, and then we will GA that version as well. So you can continue using it just in open beta while the desktop goes production. So now let's talk a little bit about the demo. I will show you both the Cloud IDE and the desktop. I also have to let you know that I'm going to do the demo in staging. So I want to show what's coming in production, not what is out there today. Staging sometimes can be a little bit unstable. If that happens, then I will switch over to production. But hopefully I will be able to do the whole demo in our staging environment. So I will show you the Cloud IDE. I will show you the desktop IDE in Visual Studio Code. And then I will show you how to develop an integration. The use case that I'm going to show is the following. Every time a new case is created in your Salesforce instance, it triggers a flow. Then we extract some values from that message that comes in from Salesforce. For example, the case number, the priority, and some other details. Then we create a new ticket, a new bug ticket in Jira using that information. And we write the result of that Jira call to a file so that we know what has been created in Jira. It's kind of like a little bit as like a logging. And then if the case that has been created is a high priority, we will also send a message to Slack, to the support team, to let them know to work on this case immediately. So these are the 4 systems that we're going to connect to: Salesforce, Jira, File, and Slack. And you can see the screenshot of the flow that I'm going to build. Then once I'm done building the flow, then I'm going to debug it. I will set breakpoints. I will deploy it to the local runtime. And then I will deploy to Cloud Hub directly from ACB to Cloud Hub 1.0. And I will also show you how you can deploy to Cloud Hub 2.0 from the Runtime Manager. If you're really lucky, then Lily is going to make an appearance. You can see her in the little car here with Max. Lily is our unofficial mascot, and she likes to pop in when I'm doing demos. Sometimes she also plays with her little chicken, little rubber chicken, which makes a noise. So if you hear some weird noises or barking in the background, that is Lily. All right. So we're going to talk about the roadmap at the end. So let me dive into the demo. So I'm actually using Lily's instance here as well, Lily's staging instance. So if you log into your Anypoint platform, you will see a new tile here, which says Anypoint Code Builder. If you click on Get Started, then it opens up what we call ACB Central. So now, while we're still in open beta, a few things have to happen here. Your administrator, your org administrator, has to accept the terms and conditions and has to give you permission in order to use the Cloud IDE. Once that happens, then you can go here and you can launch a new Cloud IDE. And here in ACB Central, you will see 2 things. So this is how to launch a Cloud IDE, and from here you can install your desktop. So let's first look at the Cloud IDE. I already have one set up here. And again, this is staging, so I'm using a pre-release version. And from here, you can see your IDE details. And you can launch your IDE from here. And if I go here, then you can see the already launched IDE. I don't know if you hear the music in the background. I think my Echo started playing some music. I hope that's not audible for everyone. So this is the Cloud IDE. You can see here again, this is staging. So you can see the URL in here. When you open that up, you get this little mule icon on here, and you get quick actions here on the side. So remember the 3 use cases that we are supporting. We can design an API, we can implement an API, and we can develop an integration. And I'm going to show you how to develop an integration in a little bit. But first, let me go back here and show you the second way of doing this. So here you have Anypoint Code Builder for desktop, and if you click on install, then it opens the Visual Studio Marketplace. So here you have the extension pack. You can click on install. Remember, right now it's the pre-release, and so you can install it directly from here. Let me just quickly close the door here. Echo, stop. Okay, sorry, I must have said something in between for Echo to start playing music. Not exactly sure what happened. Okay, so this is how you install your extension pack. And now I think I'm not sharing my whole screen, so let me reshare my whole screen. Okay, so now this, what you're seeing here, is my desktop version. So this is Visual Studio Code. You can see this is already the GA version. Again, this is staging. There's nothing here for beta. One thing I want to point out is, of course, if you run into any issues when we go GA, then you will open support tickets, just like you do with all other products. But we also added a little link here at the bottom where you can submit feedback, right? This is not for issues. This is for if you want to let us know, oh, I think you need to do X, or I really love this, then this opens a survey, monthly survey. So feel free to go there and give us feedback. All right, so now let's start the actual implementation. So I click here, I say develop an integration, and I'm going to call this SF new case, and then I'm just going to add on the systems that we're using. I'm going to put this in my projects folder. And I'm going to create my project. So we have these shortcuts or these quick actions on the side in order to make it faster for you to do the 3 journeys quickly. So now one thing that I recommend for everyone when you get started is to open your output, because then you can see exactly what is going on. And in here, we have a little section for our Mule DX server. So you can see when it starts, when it creates a new project, it starts loading dependencies. It loads the bundled connectors. So with ACB out of the box, we are bundling a number of connectors like Salesforce, File, Database, NetSuite, and a few others. So every time it creates a new project, it loads all the dependencies in the background, and it tells you down here. So this is how VS Code works. It gives you all those notifications and what it's doing there on the bottom right. So now what you can see here also is I have GenAI enabled. That's not the focus of today's session. But if there's time at the end, then maybe I will show you a little bit. But here in this, we call this a start card. You can start building a flow, building a subflow, or you can also create error handlers and other, well, that's basically it. And the first time you do this, and again, this is staging, so staging takes a little bit longer, but everything needs to load. You can see here, you can start a flow, a subflow, or different error handlers. So I'm going to create a new flow. Okay, So what you see here, you see that in ACB, different from the existing IDE, we have what we call a split view. Actually, it's like 3 to be completely correct. We have the Explorer here on the left. Then we have our canvas here in the middle and the XML on the right. So sometimes we call this like the pro code and low code view. You can close either one. You don't have to keep them open together, but I like having them both open. So I can do like some work here in the canvas and some work here in the XML. And it's just my working style, but some people may feel differently. So now also what we have done is we cleaned up the canvas, and we will only show one flow at a time on the canvas. You will also see that the flow is going to be in a vertical view. And we added this flow list here. Obviously, I only have one. But when you have more than one, you can switch between them here. And you can also change the name of this flow. Okay. And then if you want to add more flows, you can just click on here, and then you can do that there. But now let's concentrate on this flow. So what do we want to do first? First, we want to add a trigger for a new case in Salesforce. So I'm going to click here, and this opens my canvas palette. So let's talk about this a little bit. So now in order to build your flow, we have these 3 groups. So first is core processes. So if you're familiar with MuleSoft, if you've worked with Studio in the past, this will all be familiar to you, right? So these are transformers, components, and so on. And then the second group is the connectors. Remember, I mentioned we support a group of connectors out of the box. I'm going to get back to the Salesforce one in a little bit. But then this is also something new, and this is something that we get out of the box with Visual Studio Code, and it's called snippets. Snippets are little snippets, basically, of XML that you can use in order to accelerate building your Mule flows. And we pre-configure some snippets with ACB that we provide to you out of the box, for example, like Salesforce queries or some configurations. But you can also create your own user snippets. And I have done that. So I've created all the snippets for my demos to be able to use this faster. But now let's go back to the Salesforce connector. So I want to add a new object in my trigger here. So you can see the dependencies were added, and here this is our POM file. Oops. And you can see now in the POM file here, my Salesforce connector was added. But you can also see, this happens sometimes in staging. You can also see that we validate the flow in here. And the reason why this is still red is because a flow with only a trigger is not valid. So we will have to add a second component here. But before we do that, also, in order to make this Salesforce trigger work, we need to put in a Salesforce configuration. So I have a snippet here for my Salesforce configuration. And what you can see is I'm using these variables instead of putting in my username and password in clear text. But now they're actually not there. Why are they not there? Well, in order to make this work, you need a configuration file which keeps these variables. So in this case, I'm going to add a config.yaml file for all my configuration variables. But because I don't want to really show on this demo all my credentials, I'm going to copy my config.yaml file over from an existing folder into here my resources folder. So let's copy this path, and then I'm going to copy this from my user folder. Anypoint Code Builder. I probably could have used an easier folder, but anyways. All right, so now I'm going to copy that over here. Okay, and now you can see there is a config.yaml file in here, and it still cannot determine this. And why can it not? Because I need to add the configuration in here. So now this tells me, oh, there's a configuration in my config.yaml file, and now you can see it can resolve this. So now what I have done is I have just created this config.yaml file with like my credentials and clear text. So this is still not best practices. It is recommended to actually use what we call the secure configuration properties and encrypt them. If you go back to the recording of the B that Mofi did, she talks about secure configuration properties and how you can use those. So I'm not going to go into those details. But now I have my Salesforce configuration, and I'm going to now test my connection. So this is now using those credentials, and it's going to check if I can actually connect to my Salesforce system. And while it's doing that, I am actually going to delete this and replace it with a snippet. Okay, well, apparently I don't know how to spell. So let's go to my user snippets. And so these are all the snippets, and actually this is the name. Okay. And if you saw this, the connection is valid. So in the next step, I'm going to add a transform, which will extract the priority and the case number from this payload. The reason I'm doing this is because in the next step, I will transform the payload to prepare it for the Jira create issue. But later, I'm going to use Slack, and I will need the priority and the case number for my Slack message. So I'm just going to extract them from the payload and put them into variables that I'm going to use later on. Okay, so now we have extracted these values. So now in the next step, we can create a new case in Jira. Now the Jira connectors is not pre-bundled. So I want to go to Exchange and find this Jira connector. There's two ways of doing that. So the first way is you can go here again to the palette, and then you click on Search and Exchange. So this now connects to Exchange. And what you didn't see, because I did it before the demo started, is I logged into the Anypoint platform. So important to do that. And so now I'm going here to Exchange, and I'm searching for my Jira connector. So there's one Jira connector that is available here. Once I select that, it's now going to search for all the operations in the Jira connector. And what I want to do is I want to create an issue. So let's see that it will go and fetch those operations. Apologies, my network is not the fastest here. Okay, so I can here create an issue. And again, so it added the dependencies for my Jira connector. I am now going to add a connection for Jira. Okay, and you can see again, we're getting the values from config.yaml. I'm going to kick off the test connection. And then before we can create a new issue in Jira, we need to change the payload. So we need to basically transform the payload that's coming out from Salesforce into the payload that Jira accepts. And you can see here, so this is a simple JSON object for Jira. I have a project here, which I called ACB. I'm getting the subject from Salesforce. I'm getting the description from Salesforce, and I am creating a bug. Now, again, I actually could have used that because my snippet is not very different, but let's just add the Jira issue here. Okay, that connection is valid as well. So now we have our trigger, we extract the values, we write to Jira, and now what I want to do next is I want to use the file connector in order to just write this kind of like a logging, and also just in order to show you how this works. So the file connector is pre-bundled, so I didn't have to go to Exchange in order to get it from there. But as always, I need my configuration. Okay, so we're going to use the config. I'm going to write this to my files folder. And now if we go back here, and you can see every time I click here, it highlights over here what I'm doing. So now just let's add the config graph. So this has to match the name of what we did above. And we need to add a name here. So let's just call this Jira response JSON. Okay, and you can see the validation errors are going away as I add things and make this valid. So now the last thing I want to do is, if this is a high priority case, I want to add a Slack message. So now let's add a choice. Again, I prepared a snippet here for my choice. And if you see here, I already put in the when. So when, and this is where the variable comes in, when the priority is high. There's no otherwise, because otherwise we just don't do anything. And I want to show you the second way of how you can import connectors. So, and I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but another thing that we get out of the box with Visual Studio Code is what is called the command palette. So on a Mac, you do Command-Shift-P, and then you get, first of all, you get all the out-of-the-box commands and the commands from all the other extensions that you installed, but you also get the commands that we added here from MuleSoft. So you can see a list there. And remember, I did like create an integration. You could have done that through the command palette as well. And what I want to do now is I want to do, I don't want to export actually. In fact, I want to import. I want to import an asset from Exchange. So now we support 4 different asset types to import here. You can import REST APIs. You can import data weave libraries, which have recently gone GA. You can import a GraphQL API, or you can import a connector. So I want to import my Slack connector. There are 2 Slack connectors out there. I want to use this one. And so this does the same thing as what you saw me do previously with the Jira connector. It adds the dependency, it does an indexing of the project, and I do not want to do this. And so now, again, the last configuration that I'm going to add here is my Slack config. Okay, wonderful. So now let's add the post message for my Slack in here. And let me show you what that looks like. So basically, I'm telling them, please handle this case with a high priority, and I'm using the case number. And now the very last thing I'm going to do is I will add a logger at the end. Okay, so now let's look at this flow. Let's make sure we have everything in there. So we are triggered by a new case in Salesforce. We extract our variables. We then create the JSON object to send to Jira. We create a new issue in Jira. We write the response we're getting from Jira into a file. Then if the case is a high priority, we send a message to Slack, and then we log the payload that we get back. Okay, so this looks pretty good. So now let's, in preparation of debugging, let's add a few breakpoints. So I'm adding a breakpoint in the transform. Let's add one here at the right, and then at the end add the logger. So now, hopefully I didn't make any mistake. So after I designed this whole flow, I'm now going to deploy it to the local runtime. So we bundle runtime 4.4 right now, and I'm going to go here to run and debug. I'm going to kick off the debugger. And what this is going to do is this is now compiling the project. It will tell me if I made a mistake. Fingers crossed I didn't. If I did, then I'm just going to fix it. And if everything is fine, then it's going to create the deployable jar file, and it will deploy it to the local runtime. And then it will end with a message saying something, something deployed. At which point I will be able to go and kick off a new case creation in Salesforce. And then we can step through using those breakpoints through the application and make sure everything is working. So you can see it created this new application, and it's now initializing it. And in a little bit, it will hopefully tell me that it has been deployed. While it is doing that, I am going to go to Salesforce. And just real quick, I want to show you that I'm not faking this. So this is Jira. I did like 3 tests. So we have 3 cases in here already. And you can see those are the 3 cases that are in here. So I'm going to create a new technical issue. And let's say something is wrong. It is very, so let's hope our users give us a little bit more information when they create a support case. So this is high priority, but I want to go back and make sure, okay, this is deployed. All right, so you can see that. So I'm now going to send this. Okay, and as you can see here, and let's just close everything else. Here, this has now stopped at the breakpoint. And you can see here on the left, and actually let's make this bigger. So this is the message, the payload that we got from Salesforce. So now the transformation is next. So I'm going to step through here. And now this created 2 variables, priority is high, and also my case number. Okay, and this has not changed yet. But now I'm going to change the payload into the Jira message. Okay, so you can see this is the JSON expected by Jira. Now I'm going to create an issue in Jira. And now the message has changed, and it created issue ACB 46, which is what we are also writing to a file. And now we check, was this high priority? Yes, it was. And it is now going to send this to a Slack message. You may have heard the little Slack notification. And now we're logging this. Okay, so let's make sure that this actually has worked. So we're here in Jira. I'm in my backlog, and I'm going to refresh the backlog. And we see ACB 46, something is wrong. So now let's go to Slack. Yes, there's also a new message in Slack to handle the case. Now let's look at my files. Let's open this with TextEdit. And this is the output from Jira in the file. And yeah, I think this was all three things that I wanted to show you. But now I want to show a really nifty feature that we have in here, which is called hot deploy. So if while I'm debugging, I want to make a change, and let's just simply say, I just changed this message, please. Can I type? Please handle this case. So now instead of having to stop the debugger and restart it again, we have this little flash icon. And now I can say, well, redeploy the change that I just made so that I can run this again. And oh, yeah, don't be impatient. So tip number one, don't be impatient. Don't be like Simone, who clicks twice on the same icon if it doesn't happen immediately. So give it a chance to actually show you what it's doing. So you can see here now, it's redeploying this. And while it does that, I am going to go back to Salesforce and create a new case. This time I'm not going to make it high. I will just say something else is broken, still not working. Okay, now let's see if the redeploy has finished. Oh, actually, I need to make it high so that you can see that this new message is actually being sent to Salesforce. Sorry, to Slack. Okay, so let's see. I believe it is done. Let's give it another second to make sure. Hopefully I'm not too impatient. So now let's send this. Okay, and let's just quickly step through. And let's go to Slack. Okay, please, please, please. Okay, and I mistyped please, but anyways, you can see this is real. All right, so I am sure Dakota is keeping up with all those questions down here. Let me show you next how we can deploy this. Oh, actually, let me stop the debugger. Okay, so now we do support from within ACB to sorry, I was just looking at questions. I shouldn't be looking at questions. So we support in ACB out of the box deploying to Cloud Hub 1.0, but we also support deploying to other deployment targets by exporting a deployable jar. So let me show you both. So if I click here, I can now, actually before I do that, let me show you something else. So we have a file here which is called deploy.json. I'm keeping the defaults right now, but this is where you can make changes before you deploy. And so now I'm clicking on here, and this is now asking me to select a business group. So I'm selecting that business group. I'm going to deploy this to Sandbox. And down here, it's now starting the deployment. You can see that here. You can also see in the output. And so again, it is bundling this, it is creating the jar file, it is packaging it up, and you can see down here, oh, you could see it was packaging, and now it is uploading to CloudHub. So this is going to take a tiny little while. In the meantime, let me show you what else you can do. So you can say export Mule application sources. So this you can do if you want to create a jar file that you share with your team, or you can say export project to Mule deployable jar. So now, while this upload to CloudHub is still going on down there, we are also creating a deployable jar file that I can go and deploy to CloudHub 2.0. So now it exported this deployable jar file into, because I'm on the desktop, it exported it here. Let me just copy this into a different folder just to make it faster. Okay, so I have my deployable jar file here, and I can show you this is what it's called. And now if I go to Runtime Manager, and I want to go to the sandbox. Okay, so now here I can say I want to deploy an application, and I'm going to deploy this to CloudHub 2.0. I will choose the jar file that I just created. Open. This is my new case SF. Just because I have done that several times, I'm going to add the date. Today's the 10th. Okay. I am going to close this. Okay. And now I am going to deploy this application. So again, deployment takes a little while. We will get back to this. Down here, this is still uploading it to CloudHub. And I will get back to Runtime Manager in a little bit and confirm that this has all been deployed. So let me see. I think we did everything I set out to do. We created a new integration. We showed the connectors. We tested it. We debugged it. We deployed it. And now, unless Monique or Dakota are telling me that there are some questions that I should get back to, I could show you very little, not very little, very quick view of Gen AI. But let me know,
Right.
Monique, Dakota, are there any questions I should go and look at?
I think Dakota answered almost all questions that were out there. There is only one question open, which is about just seeing one flow at a time on the canvas. And is there a capability, or is there a plan to be able to see multiple flows on the canvas?
It is a good question, and I have to answer it with a maybe. So the reason why we are only showing one flow is, so we did a lot of user research. We worked with our UX team, and we wanted to keep the canvas as uncluttered as possible. And the flow view, the flow list, is really a nifty way of switching between your flows. So we believe in this design, but if we get a lot of feedback from our users that are telling us, no, we are wrong, we want to see multiple flows on the canvas, then we may revisit this. Just like, yeah, go ahead, Mani.
No, I was just like the question was from Tony, and his point there was seeing multiple flows simultaneously can help folks to detect similar code that might be like refactored. Basically, visualizing multiple flows and seeing if there is anything that we can change or use.
Okay, yeah. So as I said, I mean, if that's the general feedback, then we can just go and revisit this decision again.
Okay. There's one question that just popped up. So before we move on from there, and it's related to Canvas, right? So when there are multiple processors in a flow, it's a bit annoying to drag up or down. Is there any plan to include scroll bar to the side to easily go up and down in the Canvas?
And I think the answer again is very similar. So the way we implemented it right now was based on discussions with our UX team. But if people want a scroll bar, then we probably have to look into that. I don't know, maybe it's the Mac users that prefer like dragging it, and the Windows users want a scroll bar. I'm not sure. But this is the kind of feedback we would really like to hear from you by using that survey, telling us, no, we really want a scroll bar, we really want multiple flows. So this will be very useful for us in the future. I mean, we already got a whole lot of feedback during the beta, but we would like to continue that, getting feedback from our users.
Sounds good. And I think there is a way to provide feedback, right? You mentioned in the beginning as well. So I would suggest folks to use that and provide feedback so team can take a look at it and make it better.
Yes, thank you, Monique.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just very quickly, as I said, there's a whole recording that goes into a lot of details. You're about to use Einstein, so you have to actually agree to it. And so then it opens this sidebar. Again, this will be available as a closed pilot. And then here you can type your prompts, or we give you like two example prompts that you can use. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to ask Einstein to create a flow that syncs the phone field of account objects between a Salesforce org and a database. So Einstein is composing. And once Einstein is done composing or thinking, I guess it does both at the same time because it's really smart. So now you can see here two things. So first of all, Einstein gave me a flow and an explanation of what this flow does. So this is the name of the flow. It uses the Salesforce connector to create the phone field. It uses the database connector to select the ID and phone fields from the database table. It has a transform component and so on. And now I can do two things. So I can either insert this code into the Mule application, or I can copy it. And I'm going to insert it. Okay, so now I can close this, and you can see the flow. You can also see that it automatically adds the dependencies of the connectors it's using. So I can, in the POM file here, which is, okay. So in the POM file, you can see that it added the Salesforce connector and it added the database connector. Now, all I need to do in order to make this work is I just need to add the configurations on the top, and then I can run this flow. So just a little sneak peek. You can also, copy a flow or modify. So again, you can go back and watch the recording that Mofi did a while ago. So now let me quickly go back to my slideshow. and show you the roadmap subject to change. Remember that always. So we are now in October. So we will GA the Anypoint Code Builder for desktop. You will get everything that I showed you right now, apart from Einstein, unless you join our pilot. And again, last week's recording talks about that at length, how you can get into the pilot. And then, and I'm sure there was a question which Dakota answered in detail, but basically in our February release, we are going to give you the basic configuration in the canvas, and we will move from a pilot to a beta for the generative flows. And then later that year, we are going to GA the Cloud IDE as well. Then both will be GA. We are working on MUnit support and also data brief expression builder. There's obviously a lot more features, but they don't all fit on this slide. But every new release of Anypoint Code Builder will bring new features and will bring us closer to parity with Anypoint Studio. So again, to recap, this was the third session in the ABCs of ACB. The first one focused on architecting APIs, the second one on boosting efficiency with ACB and AI, and the third one on connecting systems. I'm sure Manik shared the recordings for the first two, and he will in future share the recording of this session as well. There will be a Twitch stream on Thursday, and there will be a webinar coming up, a GA webinar, and I think there is a meetup next Monday as well. So stay tuned. There's more coming, and really appreciate everybody who joined today, everybody who asked questions. Thank you very much, Dakota, for being the secret ninja today and answering all the questions. And thank you, Manik, for hosting us.
No, thank you for getting us all this beautiful content. Happy to host. Thank you. Yes, and like Simon said, I will share this third recording, hopefully by tomorrow, end of the day. Like usually within 24 hours it appears, and I upload it to the YouTube channel of Virtual Muleys, and the link will go back to the original event page. So feel free to come back and share that. Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you, Dakota. Thanks everyone for joining us today here.
Thank you, everyone, and
Yeah.
hope to see you soon again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.